It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Growth Podcast. We're happy you're with us again this week for another exciting edition. This one is exciting for entrepreneurs. We're talking to one entrepreneur who is, well, no strange face to many of you. That is our conversation today. But before we get into that, remember that the podcast is brought to you by Best Life Insurance. And most of you are in village banking groups. This is January. If you are in a village banking group, Best Life is telling you that the money that is borrowed in a village banking can be insured. So all you have to do is to contact Best Life on 0953 765656. Do not fall victim to those village banking negativity surrounding that arrangement. So that is that from Best Life. But like I said, my guest this week is an entrepreneur, and he is Mwala Mooto. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
You look very serious.
Maybe that's how people always say I'm very serious.
You look very serious. You've been okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we start with these cards. I want you to pick any four. No, let me do them like this. Pick any four and then read them out.
4 cards?
Any four, yeah. Pick any four. Pick any four. Okay, very straightforward. There's no method to it. So read them out and give us an answer.
In what ways are you bad with money? I think my response to this is that when it comes to money, I'm always long term. So I always find my money being tied up in long term capital assets, and I don't have cash. So you have all these assets that are worth a lot of things, but yet you are broke in terms of liquid cash. So I think that is one mistake that I always make with money.
Okay, next question.
Describe an argument you had that helped shape the person you are today. I wouldn't really call it an argument, but I think the first job that I had, I was very confrontational with my supervisor. So he had a lot of personal issues against me, and we didn't have the best of relationships. And at some point, I thought I would quit my job. But when I had a conversation with my father, he made it very clear to me that in life you would meet such kind of people that are going to trample on you. And in his words, he mentioned to me that you have a lot of potential and capability in you, and a lot of people are going to notice that in you. And eventually, they are going to try and make sure that they dim that. So from there onwards, my whole approach towards life changed. So I'm no longer a person who can be pushed around by anyone. And by the way, I really fought hard with that boss of mine, and things didn't turn out well for him.
Oh, so he left, you remained?
Yes.
Okay, next question.
Where in your life are you lazy? And what's your excuse? Exercising.
Oh, you
I would really love to exercise, but I think I love to say that my life is an exercise, because you see, I live on a farm. Every now and then I try and do some manual work. I walk most of the times within my environment. But I don't have that routine exercise like a gym, running, and all those kind of things. It's one thing that I really want to begin working on. It's one of my resolutions for this year, actually.
Okay, interesting.
In what areas of your life do you have a hard time telling the truth? In what areas of my life do I have a hard time telling the truth? I think I would say it's on the financial side. So it's one thing that I always don't want to discuss honestly with people. I think maybe it's because of the environment that we live in. So every time when you tell out a lot, especially when it comes to your financial status, it's either you invite too many requests unnecessary towards you, or if again it's the situation where you don't have, again you invite ridicule and people don't want to associate with you. So I would say that's one area.
Okay, that's interesting. So for those that may not know you, who would you say Mwala Mooto is?
I'd say Mwala Mooto is an entrepreneur, a father, a husband, and also a spiritual leader, a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So those are the things that define my life.
Oh, you really are SDA?
Yes, I'm a committed member of the Seventh-day Adventist. I've been SDA all my life.
I don't know, for some reason, I thought you knew apostolic.
No. Maybe it's because I'm Lozi and most Lozis are SDAs.
I don't know. So when I saw those posts you're making about no one they've given us content for Bible study, I thought you were mocking them, But
No. I'm an Adventist. Yeah.
okay. And how did your entrepreneurship journey start?
I think from my end, I always knew that I want to do business. Growing up, my ambition was to be a lawyer. Yes, so I didn't become a lawyer, mainly because I came to college very early. When I just finished my high school, before even results came, I was at Evelyn Horn College to come and study ACCA. So from my end, it was just a point of, no, let me pass time, then eventually I'll go to UNZA as I'm waiting. By the time the results were out, I had passed at 8 points and I was supposed to go to the School of Humanities. But because I was clearing my ACCA very quickly, within 1 year, 6 months, I was already finalizing my level 2. So it became apparent that probably it would be better that I settle down with accounts and then eventually I can go and study law. So during my accounting studies, I got to specifically fall in love with business. And I told myself that I want to run a business of my own. So even when I went ahead and started working, my idea was to raise capital and launch my business from there. So I would say that from the very onset, I knew that I wanted to start out in business.
So how long did you like work formally?
I worked 2 years with the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. I was Finance and Administration Officer for Western Province. Then I moved. I came to be Finance and Resources Manager at the British Council. I worked on that position for a year. Then I was promoted to be Cluster Accountant for Zambia and Zimbabwe for another year. Then that's when I left and went full-time in business. So total, that's 4 years.
You from what you're describing, it seems that you were on this trajectory of building a resilient career.
Yes.
And then it just, because those organizations you're mentioning are not, like small contempt organizations.
Yes.
And those positions you're mentioning, being a cluster, head is a dream of many people. And at your age, you already accomplished that. And then you say, you know what, let me just go do business.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Why? No, you see, I think from my end, I always looked for something that is more than what I was doing at that particular time. I got my first job when I was very young. I was just 19 years old. I went to college when I was 16. At 19, I got my first job at the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. To many people who were my age that time, it's either they were just finishing high school or they were just getting into uni. So I was typically living the dream life for most of them. My first salary was 5,000 and that was in 2014. So a lot of people, and I was in Mongo, so a lot of people thought I was living the best of life. But you see, for me at that particular time, I had already exposed myself to the bigger side of life. And I told myself, this is not the life that I'm going to live. So even when people thought that I was living the best of my life, I worked on improving myself. So that is why when I just finished, I got my job with ACCA level 2. But within the year that I worked at CEC, I completed my ACCA. And at the same time, I enrolled for the Oxford Brookes degree. And I also got the Oxford Brookes degree. And I also enrolled for an MBA at UNZA. So by the time that I was 21, I was finalizing my MBA. And that is what gave me the job at British Council. So I became finance manager for the British Council at 21 years old. So to me, all that was a stepping stone to greater heights because I knew that there is a much more better life out there outside the confines of the British Council. And in as much as I could be comfortable within the British Council, a time would come when I will have to leave. It's either I'm going to retire or maybe the organization can close or I can be retrenched. So I knew that I was supposed to move out at a particular time. But really, at what point will I move out? My plan initially was I'm going to finish my 4 years contract at British Council because I had a 4 years contract there. But when I just did my first 2 years, my dream became too prominent that I could no longer hold on to it. So I just had to leave so that I can go and realize my dream. So to me, to answer your question on why, I think I wanted a greater purpose to live for. unlike what I was doing at that particular time. I'm not saying that if you are employed, then you're not living for a purpose, but each and every one of us have things that give us satisfaction. And at that particular time, the organizations or the positions that I was holding were not giving me the satisfaction that I wanted. That is why I opted to leave.
All right. And what do your family make of it?
It was a big issue, my friend. It was a big issue. You see, I resigned in 2018. I lost my dad. My dad passed away in April 2018. I resigned it should be in June 2018. So the way it came about, I had been thinking about it for some time. But I didn't want to tell anybody, because every person that I tried to discuss it with always looked at me like, what are you talking about? You have the dream life. You are 20, you are 22, you are 23 years old, and you are finance manager for the British Council. You are getting a net salary of 18,000. That's what I was getting that time, and with a lot of other allowances and privileges that you have. So why are you even talking about leaving? So every time I tried to bring up that with anyone passively, they just brushed me aside. So it became a no-go conversation for me, either with my family, with my friends, or even with my girlfriend, who's now my wife now. So when I made up the mind, I remember that particular day, I just wrote that letter and I told myself, I think I'm going to send it. It took time. Then when I attached it and I just clicked send and I just saw it is loading and off it goes. I was like, what have I just done? After I sent it, that's when I remember the first person I called is my mother. Told him I've resigned from my job and I'm going to go out and start my business. What business? Said I'm moving to the farm. By that time, the farm had no electricity. It had no water. It had literally nothing. And it was in Mwembeshi. So that is like 60, 70 kilometers from Lusaka. So my mom didn't react there and then. She just said, okay. But then she discussed with my other siblings. And the next thing, I was just receiving calls from my siblings. What? You have made the wrong mistake. You have made a terrible mistake. You are selfish. You see, because you see, at that particular time, literally, I was the one who was the highest paid in my family. So to some extent, everybody looked at me like, you are living the dream life for all of us. So why would you throw that away for some crazy idea of going to live on a farm in some rural place? So there was a lot of resistance from family, from friends. My girlfriend, I think maybe because you see it's still a relationship, so you don't want to seem like you're very much against, but I could see from her face that she was also disappointed. And she asked me to say, okay, what is going to come out of you right now? So what about the dreams that we talked about? And she said, okay, it's fine for me. As long as you're going to implement the ideas that you're talking about, then we're okay with that. So the resistance was there, and I had to fight that all out alone and try and see how I can make something good from it and convince people, which hasn't been easy, even up to now. I mean, last year, I received a call from one of my aunties who was telling me they're recruiting for prison warders, and I should get my... Don't laugh, I don't want to laugh. They're recruiting for prison warders, and I should send them my NRC. So still up to now, there are people who think that I don't have a job, you see. So when I meet some of them, whether it's my aunties, my grannies, and they look at me, it's like, oh, he doesn't have a job, and please, if you know here anywhere where they're recruiting, please let's give him a job or something like that. So I think it's a mindset issue.
For most people, the drill is, while I'm in a job, I'm testing the business as a side hustle. And then I feel like, it's working. I can cross. Let me. But for you, it wasn't the case.
I tried doing that at first. Yeah, I tried doing that at first. But experience now has taught me, to be honest with you, that running a full-fledged business is a bit difficult to run it as a side hustle. Unless you just want something that is going to bring in you money, small amounts here and there. But if you're talking of a business to the magnitude that I imagined mine to be, it required the whole lot of me. So you see, after I had set up the poultry house and I built a house there, the house was not really complete, but at least it was habitable. So the rooms, it had classes. There was no really good flow inside. There was no water inside. There was no electricity. But I moved in there. And the plan was I'll be driving from there coming for work. So I brought in my first batch of chickens. That was about 500 birds. So I employed this guy who was supposed to be taking care of them. And I realized that every time when I would go for work and come back, I'll find that a lot of chickens have died. The chickens were not being given water. And there was just really nothing that was coming out of what I was doing there. And even when I was at work, I was not concentrating. It's either I was working on my business plan, my what. I just felt like work was standing on my way. So at some point, I felt like I was stealing company time from my organization. I was not dedicating my whole. And eventually, even the people around me began to notice, like, this guy is just not here. And my supervisor actually had that discussion with me to say, sometimes you're absent-minded. You see, when I come close to you, you are working on some spreadsheet. I can't understand, say, what spreadsheet? Because your supervisor knows the spreadsheets that you work with at your workplace. But they're wondering, say, what exactly are you working on? So to me, I realized that it's not possible, or it's difficult for me to strike that balance. And the kind of business that I wanted to build needed the whole lot of me. That is why I had to leave.
Tell me now, maybe for the sake of those that may not understand, at what scale is your business at the moment?
Our business right now, I would say it has grown extensively. It has grown mainly when it comes to its asset base. Agriculture is highly capital intensive. One thing that I've noticed over the time that makes us fail in farming, especially as Zambian farmers or entrepreneurs, is because we approach agriculture from a short-term perspective. Somebody is going to buy a farm today. Others don't even want to buy a farm. I've seen others that we are renting poultry houses in Makeni. I know that it's a personal decision, but in all honesty, if you're looking at the profit margins in poultry, you remove rentals, driving there every now and then, the worker that is leaving that side, in most cases, there's very little that you're going to make out of that. So you find that most of us, when we get into farming, we get on it from a very short-term perspective. You buy a farm today because it's rain season, you want to plant and think you're going to make millions today. You buy a farm, you put some small borehole there, and you want to start watering some tomatoes there and think you make money from it. That is how we end up making losses, which is what I did also when I went into farming. So like I told you, I brought in the first 500. It was a loss. When I resigned and went in, using my gratuity and a few of my savings, I brought in 1,000 birds. When there were 3 weeks, I brought in another 1,000. So to me, the idea was I will sell on the open market at Soweto or Mtendere. I'll make money from it. Then the business has taken off, which was a wrong approach because I took them to Soweto. I planned that I'm going to sell my chickens at 60 kwacha at that time. The prices were low. I ended up selling some as low as 30 kwacha. It was a loss. Then I saw the next batch. It was a loss. By the time I realized it, I had a liability of over 120,000. And I was owing different institutions and different people that I was supposed to clear out. And that's another story that we can talk about. But what I would say is, eventually when I did a post-mortem, I realized that I didn't invest in the long term. I just built poultry houses and thought I could keep chickens and start selling them. So I now began to think, to say, what are the things that I need to put in place for me to sort out all these issues? One, value addition. I can't just produce birds and expect to take them to Soweto. I don't even know who's going to buy them. And I have a poultry capacity of 5,000 birds. So I need to have value addition. I need to have a processing facility where I process these chickens. I need to have a cold room where I'm keeping them. I need to have freezer trucks where I'm distributing. I also need to have my own distribution channels. In other words, I called it the Zambeef strategy. Zambeef controls its whole value chain. That is why Zambeef is a multi-billion-dollar company now, because it has control of its entire value chain. And when I did my budget that time, it was a 5 million kwacha budget for me to set up all those things that I needed. I'm glad that we've managed to set that out entirely. So to answer your question on to what magnitude is our business, right now we stand at a full-time staff, professionals, they are 23, but we have I would call them the general workers, those that work at the processing facility, in the poultry houses and the like. So it's substantially grown in terms of its infrastructure, but we are still at the growth stage where we still have to put out a lot of other issues that we need to set up.
How has it been building this business?
It has been very hard, but very exciting at the same time. You see, when you have this vision, when I moved on the farm in Mwembeshi, it was a bush. I remember when I took my girlfriend there and said, "This is the land we want to buy," and she told me, "How are we going to live here? There's no electricity. There's no water here. There are just villages around. So what are we going to do out of this?" I said, "We are going to build a business from here." And I said, "We'll have a house here. We'll have offices here. We'll have workers' houses here. This is what we are going to do here." And to me, right now, sometimes there's a wall fence around my house. So I love to climb on top of the wall fence. And when I climb on top of the wall fence, I'm able to see the poultry houses, the processing, the offices, just like it's a broader view. I love to do that and just look at it and feel like, okay, this is the dream. It might not have been realized in its entirety right now, but I'm on track. So that is what gives me that kind of excitement. despite the difficulties that I've had to go through. Really, I've gone through very difficult phases. At some point, I had to battle out with depression. I even had to go for counseling for that. I've told you that right now, at some point, I was highly indebted. I had a lot of people that I was owing, and it became so bad, I had to move away from the farm. I had to come and live with my sister here. And you see, if you're coming from being finance manager at the British Council, and now you have to be a dependent in your sister's house, every now and then when you go to church, you meet some of your colleagues that knew you with that status. You're no longer driving. It's very, very difficult and painful. But when I look back now and look at all those experiences, I'm satisfied because I've seen that there's something positive that has come out of it.
What would you say to people who start a business and then a few months down the road, the business is not working out and they want to quit?
I want to tell them that, you see, building a sustainable business is not something that you can do within less than 3 years. So if you're just doing it for a month and it doesn't work out, you have not even yet done a year. So probably you still have to do it for the second time. Again, it won't work out. The third time, it won't work out. Probably the fifth or the 10th time, that's when it was going to work out. I'm yet to come across, in all honesty, entrepreneurs that have built businesses. We should differentiate between tenderpreneurs or hustlers from entrepreneurs who have built tangible businesses. If you sit down with any entrepreneur who has built a tangible business, they will tell you that probably in the first 3-5 years, they were not breaking even. They have just been thriving. And that is how they have now ended up building their business. So to that entrepreneur who's building something now and it's failing and they have hit that rock bottom, I would tell them that every entrepreneur has been there. I've been there myself. Even now, I still experience those failures, you see. How come when I talk about my 2023, when we're closing the year right now, I had a liability of 700,000 from an outgrower scheme that proved to be a disaster, which I've had to sort out. So all those are challenges that you are going to encounter in entrepreneurship at whatever scale, you see. So right now I'm talking of a liability of 700,000 that I had to clear. I know there's somebody right now who's struggling with a liability of 10,000 kwacha, and that's huge to them. But those are the things that eventually build you and they begin to teach you how to navigate through the business environment. So to those that are struggling in their early years, don't give up because it's part of the process. Entrepreneurship, don't approach it from the short-term perspective. That is where we miss it, especially as African entrepreneurs. And that is why we build businesses that just enable us to become local champions. Because we don't view it from the long term. We start a business today. If it fails, we call it quit. Or if it succeeds just a bit, we want to go around bawling and show all the haters that we are now doing it by driving the best of cars, putting on the best of clothes and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, if you are going to build a conglomerate that is going to employ hundreds or that is going to scale up the impact that you want, you would need to do it over time. And you need to keep sacrificing and learning in the process.
So you go to stay with your sister, you become a dependent. How do you bounce back?
You see, I at that particular time, I was convincing myself that maybe I should get a job. Because when I was living with my sister, of course, her being a woman, she was a bit soft with me. But you see, my brother would always walk in and say, entrepreneur. And you see, at that particular time, your people are calling you, you're owing, and you're just seated in the bedroom. I'd most likely sit in the bedroom. Maybe I'm watching some movies, I'm trying to work on something on the laptop, and just quiet. And you see, these are people who told you that don't resign. And now you have to walk back and live with them. So sometimes even though they're not telling you, just their look is going to tell you something. Like, obvious right now, they're thinking like, hey, you see, we told you. So it was a very hard time for me. I actually began throwing applications. To me, actually, my motto is, at the end of the day, we work so hard, we should make money. So if a job is going to give me money, that's fine. I'm still going to do it. So even right now, if Mooto Holdings is no longer able to sustain me and it proves to be a failure, I'll gladly pull out my CV and start applying for a job because I qualify. So I started looking for a job. Then in the process, I saw an advert from the African Union where they were advertising for a consultant. They were running a program called Youth for Peace. As they were working on rolling out the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, they were engaging young people in all the African countries, and specifically for the SADC region, they were scheduling some engagements in Botswana, where they were gathering together young people. So they wanted facilitators that are going to present on different topics. And there was an aspect of business development. Now, because I worked at CEEC, I had experience in business development. My role was to receive applications, review them, and provide advice and feedback. So when I looked at that opportunity, I thought, okay, maybe I could apply for this thing. And that is how I threw in my application. At the same time, also during the same period, I was just scrolling down on Facebook. Then I saw somebody who had posted about Tony Elumelu Foundation. So when I saw it, that's how I followed the link. I eventually found myself on the website. I was watching videos about this man who was giving $5,000 to 1,000 entrepreneurs every year. And there was the conferences, young people appreciating him. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's like this thing is real. And then when I opened, a call for applications was actually available. So that's how I submitted my application there for my business. But again, a thought crossed my mind. I said, okay, I can submit this application, but I can also submit for my friend, my brother, my what. So that if mine doesn't become successful, theirs will be successful. Then we can call on the business. So there and then I became busy. I was literally sleeping at midnight every day for a month. I submitted 46 applications and business plans to the Tony Elumelu Foundation. For my friends, I just called them. Most of them didn't even understand it, but I just told them, okay, are you accepting? Yes. Create for them an email on Gmail or Yahoo. Do an application for them. And I did those 46. I also saw a call for proposals from the Inter-African Bureau for Animal Standards. It's called AUIBA. They are headquartered in Nairobi. They were advertising for young people that are in agriculture, and they were giving grants of $20,000. So I also applied for that same program. So I threw in all these applications. Then eventually I didn't get any feedback from them. Then I think pressure in Lusaka became too much. That is how I decided to go back and live with my mother in Mongu. When I went there, I just arrived this first week. Then when I went to church, there was a crusade that was being organized and they wanted a preacher. So I mean, see, when you're broken, life is hard, you see. You just have to give yourself to the Lord and see how you can work it out with the Lord. So as I offered myself to be the preacher, and I was taken at some rural area, like rural. So you drive about 8 hours from Mongu, and then you go in now with an ox cart because no vehicles even go there, about another 8 hours.
Huh.
So that's how I went there. So I was there for like 2 weeks as a crusade. So I was preaching. I've never prayed like that before in my whole life, because every time I would finish preaching in the night, I would go in the bush under a particular tree and I would pray. I used to think like praying and crying is just for Pentecostals. But you see, at that particular time, I think the Adventist in me was suppressed. So I was no longer praying quiet, but I was shouting on top of my voice. I actually remember one of the crusaders there telling the other guys, like, is this guy SDA? Because the way he goes. I think maybe because I was praying sometimes in English, so then they thought it was tongues.
Oh.
No, he even speaks in tongues. No. I think this preacher they have given us is not SDA. So it was a point of me just communicating with my God. And I was very clear with him. I told him that I want something to work out. You see, I've put in my level best. I don't think I'm lazy. I don't think I'm down. But I've really put in. And I don't think I'm also unfaithful to you. Look at me. I mean, I don't drink. I mean, I don't fornicate. So I'm doing everything that you want. I'm even here preaching for you. But why is my life difficult? So I want to see something happening up for me. So when I went back, when I just arrived, because that said there was no network, when I opened my emails, I just saw emails coming in. First thing, I received an email that I've been selected to Botswana for the same training. And those guys had been calling, but my number wasn't going through. So I quickly responded to that email. When I just responded, I received an international call. And this lady just called, South African. Where the hell have you been? I'm like, I was not around, please. I'm very, very sorry. I'm very, very sorry. Like, you see, we're supposed to book a flight for you tomorrow. So if you can start off right now from wherever you are, get to Lusaka and book it. You are lucky that you don't need a visa to go to Botswana, but you would need to be there. That is how I started off and came through. But again, among the emails that I received also, I had applied for the European Development Days. It's an annual event that is held in Brussels. It's held by the European Commission, where they invite different development stakeholders to discuss international development cooperation. And amongst them, they select 10 young leaders that are going to feature in some of the high-level panels. So if you go on social media and online, you find a video of me speaking at a global event. That's the one. So I found that email to say I'd been selected for that, and I was due for visa interviews the other week at the Swedish embassy. I also found an email for the application that I did for the African Union that my grant has been shortlisted for due diligence. So all this good news just came in. After I just read my email, I told my mom, I need to get on the bus now. There was no bus because that time it was already 14. Buses in Mongo leave in the morning. So I went to the station and I had to hike a vehicle and we moved the whole night. The next day when I arrived in Lusaka around 8, I just bathed and started preparing myself. I had a flight to catch at 11 hours and I went to Botswana. When I went to Botswana, I did my facilitation. It was just a small, they were just paying us like $1,000. I did my facilitation during that 1 week, and the facilitators were very impressed with what I was doing. So they asked me, no, can you join our team as a full-time consultant? I said, oh, yes. So that is how I was offered a full-time consultancy, and they offered to pay me $20,000. So I moved with them across the whole SADC region, and we're training entrepreneurs. So during that same time also, that is when they did due diligence for the African Union program. I won a grant of $20,000. I went to Brussels. They gave us a small amount, just $5,000. Then the Tony Olumelo applications that I did also from the 46, at least 2 were successful, and each of them got $5,000. I also applied with the SEED. SEED is called Social Environmental Enterprise Development. It's an agency under the UN environment. And they also gave us about $10,000. So it's from all these monies that came in that I was now able to get back on the farm and try and restart things again. So this time when I went back, I told myself, I will not do broilers. Because like I said, broilers needed about 5 million for me to do the processing and do the value addition and everything else. So I opted that I'm going to do layers. So that is how I bought chicks, 5,000 layers. At the same time, I even told myself I'm going to get married. So the same year in December, I got married with my wife and we agreed we are going to live at the farm, and using that same money, then we can restart. So that's how we got married. 2 weeks later, we received 5,000 chicks. So that is how we kept these chicks 6 months and they started laying, and our business started off from there.
Okay. For other people, what would you say are financing options for businesses that really work? Because I know obviously banks don't give any startup money, that's guaranteed, but what are some realistic financing options for entrepreneurs that want to start out?
There are several of them, to be honest with you. One of the things that really hates me a lot is to see entrepreneurs complaining online about limited access to finance. Because to me, there are a lot of financing opportunities that are outside there. Even here in Zambia, I know of development organizations that send back millions of pounds and dollars to their development partners because it was not accessed by Zambians. Zambian entrepreneurs don't. So there are a lot of them. So you see, financing is in different categories. I love to categorize them into 3. There's equity finance, debt finance, and the other one which I call development financing. Debt financing in our Zambian context is a bit difficult, especially if you're looking at banks. They need collateral, their interest rates are high, and they're not very SME friendly. So it's not the best option for you to pursue. But again, within the same debt finance, we also have concessional financiers. So we have institutions like the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. We now have CDF that is also offering the same loans. Then we also have international concessional financiers. You see, I got a loan, for example, for one of my projects, my company that I'm doing in Western Province, of 1 million kwacha about 2 years ago at 8% interest rate per annum, no collateral. That's from an institution called the Terra Fund. And they're giving out those kind of loans. We have also gotten financing for one of our other businesses from CEEC, 1.5 million. And that is at 12% per annum. No collateral or whatsoever. So concessional debt financing is also an option, which I would love to encourage entrepreneurs to pursue. Equity is a bit difficult also because equity financiers are a bit stringent on the conditions that you'll have to meet because they're coming in to become co-owners. So they might bring in issues of corporate governance and the likes, which most entrepreneurs who are just starting out might not be able to meet. But if we're talking of equity, there's an aspect of friends, which to some extent I've seen it doesn't work out, especially in Zambia. I've tried doing business partnerships with friends and it didn't work out. So right now I have about 2 companies that I co-own with some of my colleagues, those that I work with, and I noticed that they are talented, and just for me to motivate them also, we partnered and formed some companies with them. So it's one way that we can also approach when it comes to equity investments. Then the last one is development financing. This is one which I would really love to encourage entrepreneurs to pursue. You see, right now, Africa is the darling of the whole world. Europe, America, Russia, whatever. They all want to be friends with Africa. So what are they doing? They're all pumping in a lot of money in Africa. So to me, I don't care their motives, but at the end of the day, we can exploit the money that they are bringing in. So USAID has got billions of dollars that they're announcing they're bringing in Africa. DFID, which is now called, which is UK aid, it also has billions they're bringing in. CEDA, the Swedish aid, they're also coming. The Germans have also formed JIZ. They are also in. I've seen the French also, they have formed the Innovation Fund. They're also bringing in billions that they are coming in. For USAID, actually, they now have even a funding agency specifically for Africa, United States Development Agency for Africa, and they're funding different projects. Now, most entrepreneurs are not even knowledgeable about these kind of things because to some extent, first thing, they don't pursue that kind of knowledge. It's not things that intrigue them. Even on social media, the things that they are following are things that are not bringing out that information. The pages they are following, they don't even know about these issues.
Because we're on Facebook for entertainment.
You see, so they're on Facebook for entertainment, but you see, on the same Facebook, again, there is Prospero. You see, Prospero is an agency, a company, private company formed by the UK government just to facilitate development here, and it's disbursing millions. You see? So these are institutions that have billions in pounds and they are willing to offload this money. So like I'm saying, Africa is the darling of the whole world right now and they're bringing in money into Africa. And I can assure you that in the next few years, we are going to have a generation of young African millionaires who have made their money from development financing. And eventually we will reach a point where the West either they are not going to bring out those kind of resources, or it will no longer be conducive and Africa might not qualify for that kind of financing and it will be difficult for people to access it. So to me, right now, what entrepreneurs should look out for is for development financing in those lines. Because you see, you will get a grant. For example, we got a grant from the African Development Bank under the Youth Adapt Awards, $100,000. When I converted it to Kwacha at that time, that was 2.3 million. No interest, no paying it back. The only thing that I have to do is to bring receipts. I've built the processing. These are the receipts. These are the what and the reports. And I submit. It's done.
Free money.
Free money. We've gotten financing from Tony Albert, like I was telling you. Free money. We didn't pay it back. We've gotten financing from Seed. Free money. We didn't pay it back. Concession on which I was telling you from the Terra Fund. I mean, free money also literally, because even if you don't pay back, I mean, they will just maybe shout at you and tell, no, you'll not get money again. But it's not like they can have you arrested or any assets or anything else. So all these are opportunities that young people are supposed to pursue. So to me, this is one avenue that young people should look out for. But you see, with development financing, it needs an active, smart mind, which unfortunately is the problem with most of our young people. Even the so-called educated, an educated person, Bachelor of Business Administration from Copperbelt University or from UNZA, they can't construct a proper business plan. So if, for example, they're going to approach USAID, I mean, the application process for USAID is technical. It needs somebody who's of sound mind. You need to give them a proper monitoring and evaluation plan, a risk analysis. You need to have systems that you have put in place. Our young people are just schooled. They are not knowledgeable. So even when they'll just look at the application, several times I've sent some of the coastal proposals to my friends. You just say like, Mwala, I just read the first question that give us your business summary. That's how I gave up. Or what is your social impact? Research on what social impact is. Research what the business summary is. When you do your first proposal, second, third, eventually you become an expert in it. And before you know it, you'll be garnering financing from here and there. So to me, I feel young people should really concentrate on that and see how they can exploit the funds that are coming into Africa.
That's interesting. There are young people who have given up. You worked for CEC, and maybe this question is one that you can give me an answer to. Young people have given up because they're convinced that money from CEC and all this funding, they already have cadres who are going to get the money, so they don't even bother,
Most of the people who say that, in all honesty, Sri Lanka, they're just lazy. They don't even do it themselves. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying most of them. I've worked with CEEC myself. I've also gotten financing from CEEC. Yes, CEEC might have its own weaknesses. But you see, if they will say that most of the people that get funding are cadres, I'll also tell that most of the people that apply are cadres. Because you see, in Zambia, we have got two sets of people. We have people that think that they are elite. They are not connected to their environment that's happening around them. So even when there's going to be an application, they don't care. They don't even know that CEC has advertised. Most of them don't even know where CEEC is. They have just thought themselves these things are for cadres. Then we have got those who are just zealous. I mean, they are attending this rally, they know the MP, they are doing what, they are running behind the minister. Then they will hear from the minister, no, kulima application kukusi. They're the ones who walk into the office. And in drama zatu easy. Tipasa my form nice filling echo. You assist them with filling in. When you sit down and do the evaluation from the end, they're the majority. And they're the ones whom you are going to finance. So that is what brings out all those issues, because they are the ones that are knowledgeable about the available opportunities that are there. Secondly, also, it's the same issue of the quality of the applications. You see, most Zambian entrepreneurs do not invest in knowledge. So even when they will get that application from CEEC, their application is not good. I've read some of the applications. Somebody is applying for a poultry business. They just go and ask a friend who did a business plan for block making. And they just come and start putting word by word about block making. When you ask the part, even sometimes even the names they have not changed. They just bring it that same way. CEC is not going to approve it. These are some of the issues that are also being faced even from the CDF end. Secondly, I'm of the strongest view that we cannot turn the whole country into entrepreneurs. This is one thing that I actually told even the Minister of SMEs when I had a meeting with them, to say the approach that the government is using right now of telling people, all of you go and form cooperatives and businesses and come and get money from here, and then you go and start businesses, is wrong. That is the reason why empowerment programs in this country have always failed. We did that with the Youth Empowerment Fund under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Where is it right now? It collapsed. People got money and they never paid it back. It was supposed to be a revolving fund. They had to shut it down. The same thing with the Development Bank of Zambia. That's the reason why the Development Bank of Zambia is failing right now. Because it was formed to say everyone else should go and get money. People got money from there. Politicians got money from there. Nothing happened. The same thing also with CEEC. CEEC, if properly managed and targeting the right people, could have propagated a lot of economic development in this country and given birth to a lot of big companies. But the approach of saying that everyone should go and get loans from there and then they should go out there and start businesses is the wrong one, which I feel even right now we are repeating the same mistake under CDF. We can't say that everyone should go and form a cooperative and start a business. People should not go and start a business because there is money. People should start a business because they want to start a business. A business that is founded on the basis that because there's some financing somewhere is bound to fail. Because in the first point, the owners are not convicted with the vision of that particular business. Some of the people who are going to apply for CDF, they don't even know, they'll just go, manage the business branch. Again, you are the one who are telling them, okay, chitani yankuku. Oh, yankuku. They don't even know what it takes to build a chicken. Then you give them the money. When they get the money, they'll go and sit, I think the government been drama is, they share the money. It's very common in most of these empowerment programs. So to me, what I've always emphasized is we need to start working on building stable and bigger businesses. So instead of focusing on saying that because we have got a budget of 10 million, and then we say 10 million divided by 50,000, I've seen like the Busuru loans and whatever loans that they're giving. In all honesty, please, in Zambia right now, it's difficult to start a proper business in a 5,000 or a 10,000. I've seen others who have gone there to get 50,000 that we are going to do farming. What farming in Zambia? And with me, I'm surprised the people who are approving those loans. What farming are you going to do in a 50,000? Even just drilling a borehole right now is 20,000. You add up a tank, you add up a pump, what? 40 pin is gone. 5 pin now, you get seed from there. You buy the land, you do what? There's nothing that they're doing from there. The problem is when we allow politicians to drive the economic agenda, they thrive on numbers. So to them, they'll say, as long as we have financed 2,000 people, then that is fine. But are those 2,000 people running viable businesses? No. So what we need to focus on is what kind of sectors are we going to develop? Who are the active players in those sectors? And how can we grow those sectors so that now it can create employment for everybody else? Because we don't need to turn everybody into entrepreneurs. To me, we are better off having even 10 Zambifs. Because Zambif right now is employing people in thousands. Imagine if we had 20 Zambifs, companies indigenous to the extent of Zambif now. They would generate employment and end poverty. But for as long as we keep getting small amounts and distributing it among us people that are just going to chew it, there's nothing that will come out of it. So to answer your question, first thing is a wrong approach to say that every person should go and get money from there because they don't even have a business idea. Secondly, most of them that are also going there, they are not convicted and they are not writing proper business plan. That is why it doesn't work out.
How would you say an upcoming entrepreneur can navigate the competitive environment? Because some people don't bother starting a business because there's already someone doing that business and they're doing it very well, you know. So who am I? I mean, for example, I want to start a clothing business. I know someone who does suits. They've got a connection in Turkey or in China, and everyone knows them. They've got 100,000 followers on Facebook.
There's
and
Richard Brian.
Yeah. So I want to enter that space. You know, how do I navigate that?
You see, I always got that when I was saying I'm going to start a processing facility. They say, no, there's Zambif, there's Lubona, there's Kachema, there's what, and all these things. You see, before Lubona started, there was Zambif. And I don't think that before Zambif came in, there was no people eating or selling meat. There was always people that were there. So at the end of the day, competition is part of business. And what you need to do is you need to just find your own niche and see how you could exploit it from your end. So what I would advise an entrepreneur who's scared of competition is you can't run away from competition. There is no industry that you will get unless you invent something that is entirely new. But eventually, even if there are going to be entrants that will also come in and compete with you. So you can't run away from competition. Regardless of what you are going to get into, there will always be competitors. But what you need to know is identify your niche and see how you are able to exploit it and you are able to do the best out of it. So the mistake that we often make is if we are going to see our friend is doing that, then we copy it exactly and do exactly as it is. It might be a bit difficult for us to compete from there. You see, for example, when we started processing, the most common market that everybody wants to pursue is to bring it to the Lusaka market. But you see, there's a whole lot of a market outside. Me and our family is in Chibombo. There's Shibuyunji. There's Mumbo around us. There's Chilanga around us. All these peri-urban places, there isn't even one Zambif macro that is there. But those people also need to eat meat. So when I did my marketing survey and visited all the shops there, I discovered that most of them were coming to order their meat products in town from Zambif, and they take that side. So as our niche was, when we produce, we take to those same places, and the places are moving. We set up our first outlet in Nangoma, it's selling. We've set up our next one in Stumbeko. We now want to go deep into Shibuyunji and all these other places.
Yeah, and you know what I learned last week? Because last week I was in Siavonga. I learned that the opportunities really are not in the rural areas. Can you believe the whole Siavonga, there's no ShopRite, no Choppies. They have to go to Chirundu, okay, to go and buy groceries and drive back. And that's like driving almost close to over 1 hour. Just go and buy. So for me, the opportunity is there, but young people, that's another conversation for another day. But then also the challenge with most young people is, yes, I'll apply for the funding, I'll get the funding, I'll get the grants, maybe I'll have money that I'll raise, but the financial discipline then is what just sweeps you off and you fall off.
That's the thing. It's not just the young people. Actually, let's not miss it. Even elderly people. You see, I've seen it when I used to work for CEEC. This man, I usually like to give his example. He's amongst the main one, but this one really stood out. This man used to come. He was coming all the way from Nalolo. His name was, I'm not going to mention his name, but he would come in and he was just coming literally from the village, and we were assisting with applications. Sometimes we even ask for food, we give him. So that's how we dispersed his 30,000. So how do I disperse his 30,000? That time we're dispersing from Invest Trust. So I called him, no, we have dispersed, so come and get your money. That's how he came to get his money. After he got his money, he went direct into ShopRite. He bought things. And you see, in Mongo, ShopRite is just opposite CEEC. He bought things. Then afterwards, then he came now to visit us. Oh, Mr. Mooto, how are you? What? No, I brought drinks for you. Gave us drinks all in the office. Gave us pies. No, we chatted. After we chatted, no, I want to thank you for whatever you did. So please, 300 each person. Mr. Mutakata, come here. This money that you are giving us, no, actually just take a small change from that amount. So I said, no. It was not on the budget. So why have you spent all this money? No, actually, you see, some of these things you just need to, in laws you say, you need to make yourself happy sometimes. And to me, I noticed that this is a problem here. And 6 months passed, the man never came back to repay. When we went and followed up, when we heard the stories in the village, we told when he went back, he did a big party. He did an initiation ceremony for the daughter. He also did the first wedding in the village for the son. And it was powerful. So it's a weakness, not just for young people, but it's just generally as Zambians. Zambians or Africans, we think that when we have money, we need to eat it and finish. We live for the moment. So most of us, because we have a job now, then there and then. That is why the average Zambian, when they get their first job, their dream is to just be confirmed and get a loan and buy the latest vehicle and shame the damn haters that we are now driving. If they are here in Lusaka, I've walked into young people's houses who are renting a small house and they have a whole lot of a big screen whereby the sitting room is even too small. The screen is just in your face. But you see, they want to live that kind of a life. That is what really enables us to fail to build our businesses. Because like I've mentioned, business is about discipline. Business is about you having $1 million and you still don't even, you don't take very good care of yourself because you're building the business itself. You see? So when I won Quasar, 1 million entered our account, cash, and it was sitting there. All these other financing that we would get it in batches. Maybe there's 25%. That was the first time when we had 1 million per, just like that. To me, I even told myself, if I'm going to tell anyone here that I've got 1 million in my account now, I mean, people that were sick will die. There's just going to be a lot of issues here. So I'm not going to talk about it with anybody. And at that particular time, I had to make sure that I stick to my budget and my plan. And I always tell people that 1 million finished within 3 weeks. Why? Because I just got quotations from contractors, those that were doing electricity, that were building, that were doing what? We got building materials. Within 3 weeks, all the money was swiped out and I had 0 on my account. And that has always been my strategy. During this time when I'm building the business, when I have the money, it is reinvested and we see how we can build the business from there. There will come a time when we can now enjoy. I mean, even us, once in a while, I carry my wife, we go to Tiffany's, we go to a nice place, we go for dinner and those kind of things. But we are still building the business at this particular time. And during this time, we need to sacrifice. That is what most young people miss. They don't have the discipline to sacrifice. You see, when I started working for 2 years and I wasn't driving in Mongo, people would ask me, dude, you work. You're working at CEEC. Every other person is driving. Why are you not driving? To me, at that particular time, it wasn't necessary. I was still upgrading myself education-wise. When I came here to Lusaka, I rented my first house in Bowlen. I remember I was paying 1,000 kwacha. I was finance manager getting 18,000 like I had mentioned. I was getting a 1,000 kwacha house in Bowlen because I had a plan on what I was supposed to. And people still really talked. Relatives that visited me talked about it. When I bought my first car, which was a Vitz, again, there was discussions around it. Worst of all, it was even pink. We were wondering that, why do you drive a pink? I just bought it second hand from a certain lady. So all those are issues, you see. And when you are financially disciplined and not abiding by the norm, automatically you just begin to become an outcast. People begin to make you feel like there's something wrong with you, you see. And that is what I always felt. When I would go for work, at the British Council, we are just behind Sunshare building there. So lunchtime, people would go to Managerial, arcades and all those kind of things. And they're coming in all these nice spots with nice foods. So me, I just used to buy 1 loaf of bread every week on Monday. I buy 1 loaf of bread from Pick and Pay. That was by, Spar. That was by arcades. 1 loaf of bread, brown bread, and I put it in. And at the office, they always provide tea, so free tea. So every lunchtime, I would just go in my loaf of bread. I would remove 6 slices from there and I eat. And I come back and sit. I wasn't malnourished. In the evening, I would go and have my shima and everything else. But people will still talk about it. This guy, he's amongst the guys who are managers here. Others were even lower than him, but he's always just eating bread. Look at the clothes that he's putting on. Look at look at the car that he drives. All those are things that people talk about. But what I want to tell young people is, if you want to position yourself for greatness, you would need to sacrifice. Especially if you come from backgrounds like ours, where you have to start everything from the scratch. You see, for somebody like me that moved to Lusaka, the first time I stepped foot in Lusaka was in 2012 when I came to college. You see, that was when I got to know Lusaka, and I was just dropped at Evelyn Horn College. I was a squatter. And for me to build something for myself within this whole big city, I have to go an extra mile and put in additional sacrifice. So when my friends were bowling and trying to experience the best of their lives in their youthful age, I had to make sure that I was investing at a farm. I had to drive low-key vehicles. I had to put on low-key clothes so that I'm able to build that dream. Even up to now, I still have to put in the same kind of sacrifice. And that's what I would want to encourage our young people. Yes.
Okay. And talking about sacrifice, then comes the issue of, friends and family. Some people obviously know that your business is doing fine. Yes. Okay, you may not be where you want to be, but they know it's doing fine.
Yes.
Friends, relatives, they have this expectation, then there's black tax. How do you navigate that?
I have my own opinion about black tax. I actually don't even like to call it black tax to some extent. To me, I really feel that we have a social obligation as Africans. I'll give you a practical example. I was taken to school partly by my siblings. So it would be very hypocritical for me to come on this podcast and talk about black tax, because if they're going to see this, they'll be looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? We were paying your school fees at Evelyn Horn, you ate our food and all those kind of things. So when it comes to black tax, really, we have no option about it because we are a poor society where we depend on one another. So some of us were schooled by our uncles, our aunties, even our siblings. Some of us, maybe our parents did, but some of us, our parents were even alive, but they couldn't afford at that particular time. So that is why the people had to step in. So the issue of black tax, I feel that we are obliged, we have a social obligation to help one another, because in one way or another, maybe those that come from very well-to-do families, but average African families, there's a point when you went to live with your auntie, with your uncle, with your brother or whatever, and you need to reciprocate that. However, we need to understand that we need to reciprocate that on basic necessities. You see, you don't call me and say that I need to give you money to buy a smartphone when you can still use the Kasem Kamtinika phone and make calls and make text messages. A smartphone is not a necessity. It's just one of those things that you need. You don't call me and say you want money for your birthday. You see, somebody called me and said, no, I want money for birthday. Say, dude, I don't even celebrate mine unless my wife makes me a cake. So I'm not going to send you money for your birthday. A happy birthday is enough for that. So we need to make people understand that there are things that we can do for them. There are things that we can do for them. Even from my end, I extend support to my family, my siblings, where the need be. I'm privileged because I come from a family where people understand and everybody is hardworking. That is one thing that I really appreciate. But I often look at my other friends that come from families where maybe you just have this drunkard brother or careless sister or brother, and they're just everywhere and they're just bothering you. So you need to put your foot down. People need to understand that at the end of the day, they're adults, they need to take responsibility of their lives. Your business is separate from you as an individual. You see, there are times when we're keeping eggs, for example, and we have like 300 trays of eggs, and somebody comes to visit, manje my egg, then we're going. I ask them, say, you see, I don't think that when you go and visit Bill Gates today, there are some laptops that when you're living, no manje munga tengeka laptop kamozi yako, then we endina laptop. It doesn't work out that way. So when you come and visit me, you are visiting me as an individual, and you can't expect to get things from the business. The same thing also applies to the money. If the business has money, it's not mine, it's for the business. So there are several times when I've had to either tell people that I don't have money because it's not my money, it's for the business. And they have to understand. But if it's an emergency that I know that they can't do away with it, I'll come in to help. But I think we need to be able to communicate that and make that very clear. One of the reasons that has made it difficult to build sustainable wealth in Africa is this dependency syndrome. We have even coined the breadwinner thing. I don't like that term, because it convinces us that there's only one bread to be won. And when one person wins it, then every other person should just relax and start looking at the breadwinner. And this is what has bred poverty in our communities. If you look back, you find that most of the families where we come from, there's always one person who really worked hard and pushed themselves, and every person was just looking at them. When they died, the whole family just crumbled down and it became a disaster. So we need to move away from this so that those of us that make it, we tell the others and teach them that they should also find ways of making it on their own. If I have money, it is mine. It is not for my brother. It is not for my siblings. And I make that very clear that it is mine. You need to work hard for your own things also. And I really appreciate that about my siblings, because they understand everybody works on their own, and I don't receive much of that kind of pressure.
Okay, you say 2023 was a very difficult year for you in terms of business. Talk me through that.
It was very difficult in the sense that we were launching our processing facility. So, like I told you, this was a 5 million kwacha project that I've really been working on for the last 2-3 years. So we're just investing in infrastructure, bringing in the equipment and everything else. So we managed to launch it in April. We opened it up. We brought in our first batch of chickens, and we did 8,000 beds. After we did the 8,000 beds, and we had bought in the fridges, we didn't yet bring in a cold room. So we just brought in fridges, 10 fridges, Defy, and I was sure that now we are off to go. So we slaughtered, the chickens were ready, the first 4,000. We slaughtered, we started marketing. The chickens were not being bought. So we had chickens that had filled up in fridges and they had nowhere to go. They were moving at a very, very slow rate. With time, we realized that this thing is not working and chickens started going bad. We had to throw away some of them. That was an investment of like 500,000 that I put in just the birds themselves. What I was just able to recover from that was just about 100 and something. So the rest of the heat just went in the drain. When I sat down, I realized I need a cold room. I didn't have money to get a cold room, so I had to find where I could rent a container, 40 foot, and we came and placed it there. I didn't have money to stock the new chickens, so we started doing the supplies from external farmers who were bringing in. So farmers were supplying, and then we would slaughter, we would sell. They're moving at a very slow rate, and you see also when we did our margins, the price that we're offering to the farmers, some of them were disputing because they wanted to sell at the retail price that they sell on the open market, which is not possible. So it was a bit difficult for me to convince them. Eventually, I struck a deal with one of the producers of feed. I won't mention them here, but they produce feed, and we signed an MOU with them, and we began. It was an MOU where they give the feed to the farmers on credit, and then from their end, they supply to us. When we pay them, when we are going to remove the money for the supply of the feed and pay them, and then we also pay the farmers. Then we had a distributor network. We identified retailers and off-takers that we're getting. It seemed perfect on paper. And we began the process, send out to the distributors. 5 days payment period. Some of them, 1 month, they were not paying. 2 months, they were not paying. The farmers wanted their money. The feed producer wanted their money, and it was chaos. You see? So we had to drag some of them to court, drag some of them. Some of them I'm still, even right now, is coming from the police on some of those issues. But we had to find a way. Eventually, we had to clear out everything. My target was that by the time I closed the year, I need to clear out that. So I had to touch from my other businesses so that I could sort out that. So it became a huge lesson from my end. Because to me, after investing, like I say, 5 million to set up the whole facility and everything, I thought like we have arrived. This is the dream life now. And then 2023 opened up my eyes to say, we have not yet arrived. There's still a lot of other things that we are supposed to put in. Among us, the things also, it taught me humility, because you see, you're receiving calls from different people that want their money. You need to manage that relationship with them. You see, I'm a social media person. So one of the things that us social media people guard very much is reputation. You see, I don't want to wake up one day and there's just a viral post about Mooto swindling farmers. I mean, it's going to be news everywhere. And by the time I know it, some of the big cooperating partners that I deal with, international organizations, when they get hold of it, they're suspending some of our contracts. So that's a huge issue to me. And it taught me humility. Stomaching somebody who's shouting at you continuously for 10 minutes on the phone and you're just there, yes, madam, sorry, madam, yes, madam, sorry, madam. And you're just seated. Maybe it's just the date of a 5,000. And after you clear it out, you still apologize and move on. So it was a huge challenge from my end. And I learned a lot of things from there. So when we've started the year right now, we started out a bit stronger and we managed to resolve all those problems and we are now re-strategizing. So my theme for this year is we need to take control of the whole value chain. We produce our own chickens, we process, we distribute in our own vehicles, we sell in our own outlets. So we are going the Zambif way, and that is what we are going to do. So we should be relaunching in April. Our outlets across, we have identified, we did marketing survey, Lusaka, the Copper Belt, all the way to Kasumbalesa. I even went to DRC, Lubumbashi, Kolwezi, just to try and see how we could do that. So it is difficult here, but it prevented lessons. You see, it's during times of adversity that you get to realize actually that there's a whole lot of other things that you could do and makes you think outside the box. And this is what has happened. And it also opens opportunities for you. Because you see, when we were beginning the year, I thought we had arrived. We have the processing facility that I was dreaming about, and things are off running right now. But after encountering this challenge, that's when I realized that we need to invest in other things. We need additional vehicles. We need what? I had to engage some of the partners, and before I realized we were able to bring in a deal, 3 million. We are not getting vehicles. We are not setting up outlets and all these kind of things.
Okay.
So that's
in your time in business. What principles do you think have worked for you that have made you successful?
Akaso movement. See, when I speak about Akaso is the key to success, most people think that I joke or maybe I'm just talking about people being stingy and not helping one another. I honestly believe that people should help one another, but I believe that we need to develop a culture of financial discipline. Our greatest weakness as Zambians is poor financial discipline. You will observe this with, you see, sometimes you even look at people that have held positions, highest positions, ministers. I've seen ministers go broke in this country. The ministers, you meet them, they don't have a vehicle, they are walking. Even basic things like food have become a problem. Financial discipline. When they were ministers, they had 4 phones. I said, why do you need 4 phones? You can't even answer them at once. You see, when they were ministers, they were drinking, partying, doing what? I'm not against enjoying life. But what we are communicating as Akaso movement is, in as much as you are enjoying life, you need to understand that you still have a whole lot of a life to live. So enjoy within your capacities. Don't enjoy outside your capacities. Right now, the greatest issues that we are dealing with is indebtedness. For example, among civil servants. We're only talking of civil servants because they are public workers. But definitely, even in the public sector, we have many that are also highly indebted. And partly the issue is about living within your means. People don't want to live within their means. So to me, one thing that has really helped me, I might not be the most successful person among the most successful people, but at least I've moved to reach a point where I am right now because of financial discipline. When my friends were being young men, when they were partying, when they were putting on the best of clothes, when they were driving the latest vehicles and living their best of life, I told myself that there is a kind of life that I want to live. There is a kind of impact that I want to generate. So I'm going to meet these things and I'll do them later on in the future. For now, I have this that I'm supposed to build. If most young people are going to have that kind of discipline, then they are going to make it. What they don't have right now is discipline. Young people have jobs. Some of them are starting jobs very good, high paying. 5 years on the line, they have no assets that they can point out. Recently, the president had mentioned something about trucks and what, and I was seeing social media going hallway and saying, no, don't advise people, don't do what. The reason is because he is touching on critical issues which border on the lifestyle of most Zambians, the lack of financial discipline. You see, we're not stopping people from enjoying their lives. But in all honesty, how can you be drinking the whole weekend and then the next day you are seeking for where to borrow money for food?
You're my last hope.
Yes, you're my last hope. You see, Or I mean, you are drinking and partying, and you are 50. You'll be retiring in the next 10 years, and you're just there and saying, "No, we are still enjoying life." What is going to happen after you retire? You see. So those are things. Those are the conversations that we need to begin having as friends, as families, and the likes. The problem is these conversations are not even had within families. You see, you can't have that conversation about financial discipline because you'll be seen like some of us who have already been tagged to be stingy. You're already considered like, that one is just stingy. Every time when you call him, he doesn't have money. He's always advising you about investments, about doing what, and that's the attitude that we have. But at the end of the day, it's putting us further into poverty and making it difficult for us to develop, even as a country.
Yeah, I mean, I was very disappointed. There's one time, not to say I should be shocked, but there's a new bar that opened in Chilenge. So I was driving because I was going to get something from the market, and 10:30, these guys are drinking. I was like, in the morning. I'm like, why? But it's
very common, and that's a problem because most of the people that you find there are young people. Most of the people you find there. And you see, the coming in of social media has presented a whole lot of a fake life. Social media has a lot of successful people with nothing but just numbers. And everyone is thinking that this is the kind of life that we need to live. So when a young person starts working right now, they want to get a BMW and post it on Facebook and tell them, I'm now doing it. That's why personally, I even intentionally started the Akaso movement so that people can know that you can still be popular on social media, but still not portray a life of extravagance and just be yourself, you see, and just progress in your own lane. This whole thing of all of us wanting to seem successful is what is actually putting us further into poverty.
5 pieces of advice you'd give to people, young people.
Young people, number 1 is the same issue of plan for your life. The best time that you can plan out for your life is when you are still young and energetic. That is the advice that I gave to myself. You see, like I mentioned, the average Zambian person, when they get a job today, the first thing is we need to get a vehicle, get a loan, get a vehicle. 5 years, they are paying for that vehicle. After 5 years, it means now they are ready to marry. They are even of age. Their relatives have been telling them, so they'll have to get married. And now they need to do a dream wedding. Again, another loan to finance the dream wedding and whatever, the house and everything else. It means 5 years of the marriage. What are they doing? They're paying back the loan. After they finish paying this loan, after 5 years, and in Zambia, when you get married and 5 years you don't have children, it becomes a big issue. Again, you need to have children. So by the time you're clocking 5 years, probably the first child now needs to start school. The other one maybe is being breastfed. And then that's when you realize that, oh, I have a diploma, I now need to go and do a degree. Or I have a degree, I now need to do my master's. That's when you move around and realize, oh, there are houses there are plots, ku New Kasama. There's this that has to be done. Then all these responsibilities just dawn on you at one particular time. I say you stop living, you just start existing. Just start thriving from 1 month into the other 1 month. By the time you realize that you're 40 and you don't even know how you got there yourself. So when you are going to start out young, it is going to assist you a lot. I gave myself this advice when I was just starting out at 19 years old. And most people thought like, why are you stressing yourself? You are young, just enjoy the best of your life. What I told myself is, I don't want to stress in my 30s. I don't want to stress in my 40s. My clear plan was, by the time I'm 30, I should be comfortable enough to take my children to the best of schools, to eat the food that I want to eat, to live a relaxed life where I don't worry about basic needs. I should only worry about extras, like how do I set up an outlet on the copper belt? How do I expand on the northern circuit where I want to get to? So those are the problems I need to deal with. And to me, it has really worked out for me. Like I'm saying, I might not be the best and most successful people, but at least at my age now, I'm able to see that that kind of discipline has really helped me. And that is what I want to encourage the young people to do. They shouldn't rush to extravagance and spend unnecessarily and not plan for their lives. Because when they are going to hit 40, you see, it's very embarrassing when you have children and you have a wife, especially if you are a man. I mean, in all honesty, women, their life can change instantly. I mean, if you find a good man who's going to marry you and is able to provide, that's okay. But that's not the best option. But for men especially, I love to be very blunt with men. A man, you have a huge responsibility. When you are broke as a man, you are a nobody. Nobody respects, even your own wife. Women don't respect men that are not bringing anything on the table. So if you are broke, you are a nobody and you'll be disrespected even in your own house. And that's one thing that I didn't want to go through. So young people, invest now. If you can build yourself a house even before you get married, even better. That's what I told myself. I told myself, my child is never going to know a rented house. My wife will never live in a rented house. So when we got married, we went directly to our own house. I was 24, she was 23. So those are the things that young people are supposed to endeavor to do so that they have a comfortable life. When you are older, you have more responsibilities. You have lesser energy. Right now, like I told you, I came here. I didn't have a meal the whole day because I was busy. If I was 50 right now, I'm diabetic, I have BP, I would have collapsed already. But right now, I can run around and have all those things done because I still have the energy. That's advice number one. Second advice is that as young people, we need to invest in knowledge. Knowledge is power. One of my greatest assets is the knowledge that I possess. You see, the fact that my business has grown to this level is not because I'm amongst the most disciplined or the most hardworking entrepreneurs. No. It's because I possess a certain kind of knowledge which the average Zambian entrepreneur does not have. I was telling you about the different funding opportunities that I'm looking at now. The average Zambian entrepreneur doesn't know about this. To them, they'll start their business, they'll have to reinvest, and grow it to that point. I went full-time in business in 2018. This year, we are now getting into the 6th year. Building the business to what it has become now, if I was just reinvesting without external support, would be impossible. I know people that have been doing farming. I found them in, up to now, they have been failing to connect power on their farm. Because just connecting power from Zesco, they'll give you a bill for a transformer, pause, everything else, even the contractor you pay yourself. My bill, for example, for me to bring power on my farm was 600,000. That's not something that you can easily pull out there and then. And you have to pay it at once. So the privilege that comes with me is I have the knowledge where to get the financing, how to approach the financiers, how to engage with them. So when you have this kind of knowledge, it gives you an added advantage. And in the end, people start thinking that, no, he's lucky. Oh, he's lucky. He's not lucky. He just has a certain kind of knowledge. Thirdly, build a professional cycle that is productive. One of the things that I've extensively invested in is I've invested in knowing people in the right places. So I know people that have influence. When I want something, I can have it done. If I want something from the police, I know who to speak to at the police. If I want something from the courts, I know who to speak to at the courts. If I want something from the banks, I know who to speak to at the banks. These are relationships that I've created and cherished. Young people, don't waste your time with relations that are not adding any value. The only thing that you do when you meet is, where are we chilling from? Where are we drinking from?
Where's the video?
Where's the video? Those are things that don't add any value to your life. But if you start knowing people and cherishing those kind of relations, then it's going to work out for you. I'll tell you that most of the opportunities that I've gotten is because I knew somebody who was inside. Not really because there was corruption, because some people think that if you get something new, then maybe you bribe them. No. Sometimes knowing somebody who's inside is going to alert you to the opportunity. You see? For example, there's a recent program that we participated in under the African Union. It's because there's a guy that I knew way back here who got a job at the African Union. And when he saw that opportunity, to him what came in his mind is, I think Mooto can do something like this. And he quickly sent me the link. And right now, if I'm checking my emails, I'm receiving links on opportunities, workshops, funding opportunities, trainings, capacity building. All these are programs because I've built this kind of professional network. I see other people saying, no, so where do you see these funding opportunities? It's because my network is able to alert me on that. And you see now, your network is not just limited to the people you know. Even on social media, that's your social network. Look at the pages which you are following on social media. If these pages just full of drama, this one is insulting this one is not doing this one is what. All of us want entertainment. And sometimes we all go for the drama just to entertain ourselves. But if that becomes your whole life on social media, you will be shocked that there's only junk in your newsfeed. But yet to others, there are things that they are seeing there that are giving them opportunities. So your social network includes even the people that you are following on social media. Follow people that are giving you content that is able to build you, that can give you access to opportunities. You see? If you're following guys like, let's say, Fusi Tembekwayo is one of my favorite speakers. You're following Strive Masiwa. He brings out very good content. Tony Elumelu, very good content. You see? Here in Zambia, if you're going to follow guys like yourself, I've watched all your podcasts from the word go, every podcast that you release every week. I watch it. And I listen to very good stories about different entrepreneurs in this country. You see, recently I was listening to the one that you did with Mr. Ngandu. Very, very inspirational, a very powerful story. But you see, sometimes I look at even the likes that are there on Mr. Ngandu's interview. And then I look at some live of some people who are just arguing and shouting at each other. And there are 20,000 people who are watching. I'm surprised. Where are all these people? When you go live and have something that is more product, they're not there. The American Embassy is going to post, we are doing free capacity building at the American corner. Come and do trainings. 2 likes. Probably even the guy who posted at the American Embassy because he wants to show the boss that there's somebody who has seen, like and shared. Nobody is commenting there. So young people need to follow the right pages and get the right information to get in the cycle which is good for them. Then thirdly, young people need to start focusing on developing themselves as individuals. You see, investing in yourself so that you are able to compete on the global stage. You see, right now, the ground is becoming more and more differentiated. In the olden days, if you were bright, even if you came all the way from my village in Kanja, in Shangombo, one of my uncles was very brilliant there, and he passed grade 7 and came direct to DK. From DK, he went to the University of Zambia and sponsored, and that is how he became a professor and whatever, educated. That is what most of our parents that went through that were able to get. But right now, even if you have 6 points, it's not a guarantee that you're going to UNZA. So it means education is no longer the equalizer. We have people right now with 7 points that I know, up to now they're not in uni because there's no money for them. So what is happening now is we are reaching a point where the gap between the rich and the poor is going to get wider. And it becomes difficult for you to cross over if you're poor to become rich. Because education can no longer make you cross over. Those days for our parents, as long as they got 6 points, automatically they'll find themselves at UNZA and they get onto the elite. But now if you're poor, you can't even get a bursary because maybe you don't even have ways of coming to that. And by the way, even if you apply, there are so many other people. You're not the only one. So it will be difficult for you to cross over. So young people should need to begin investing in knowledge, gaining practical skills. Most of our young people are unskilled, even those who are educated. One of my frustrations in running a business is dealing with incompetent graduates. Graduates who have a BA in finance, but they can't even enter formulas on an Excel sheet. Graduates who claim to have a BA in computer science, but they can't even formulate a proper website. They can't make an app. It is story after story. So young people, even those who are educated, are just schooled. There's nothing that they know. You take them in a practical, real environment to have things done, they are not able to do it. The reason is because even at the university, they are just garnering, memorizing. When they get to the real world, there's nothing that they are able to do. So young people should begin investing in practical life skills. If, for example, right now in this digital age, you invest in graphic designing, you invest in videography, you invest in web designing. Those are things that are marketable. If you are a finance person, you need to know about Excel. There's no one accounting system that you can run. You can't be a finance person and you're telling me you have a degree. You don't even know even the name of the accounting system. I've interviewed some. Tell me one accounting system you know. Zero. Okay, here is an Excel template. Enter a formula here. Zero. They don't know. But that's somebody you're bringing in to work in finance. What are they going to do? So these are things that young people need to begin working on. Lastly, please, can you safeguard your life? Don't be so careless with the way that you are living your life. Most of our young people are very careless now. They drink anything, they sleep with anything, they talk to anything. You see, there's all this laissez-faire kind of life. And to some extent, I feel it's being propelled by social media, because the kind of life that is portrayed by social media on social media is a careless one, where people drink anything, partying and all those kind of things. It's good that they live that kind of life. But one question that you need to ask yourself is, what kind of a future are you going to build for yourself with this kind of a lifestyle? So to me, I feel so bad when I see young people that are wasting their lives in beer. I'm not against beer. I don't drink myself, but I feel even beer should be drunk moderately. We have young people. I once met a former schoolmate. I not that I was pretending. I literally felt to recognize him. He looks old. He's finished by beer just from the way that he looks. Like you have mentioned, every evening visit our nightclubs, our beer halls. There are a lot of young people that are filled up with these places, and these are the things that they are doing. Drugs. It's extensive. A few times I've visited Dr. Siatwambo's rehab, and I meet young people. These are brilliant minds that could contribute and build a better future for themselves, but they are hooked up to all these substances, and now they are struggling to find ways of coming out of it. We talk about illicit sex. Look at the number of young people that are just, impregnating anyone and anything and getting pregnant, and there's no plan for it, and their lives are messed out. So my point here is young people should begin to get more responsible with their lives, to know that if you are in your 20s, you might live all the way up to 90. But imagine if you're going to engulf yourself in beer drinking and you don't build a future for yourself, how will you live when you reach 90? So those are the advices that I would love to give to the young people out there.
No, thank you so much. I think it's been very enlightening. And I like the fact that you don't mince your words, because I feel like now the only way for people to make is tell them the truth, Yes. And I know that in our society, people don't want to hear the truth. Yes. Because the truth reminds them of a reality that, they don't want to think about. But at the end of the day, I feel like 10 years from now, I'll look back and say, you know what? Let me be honest with myself. And I feel like most people, you can lie to other people, but you can't lie to yourself. You know to say, okay, I'm off the rails. I must get back. And that can only happen if I even admit that I'm off track. Yes. But if I tell myself, it's just okay to be, by the time I realize, okay, I've messed up, the 10 is way back.
Yeah.
And then the work is way longer. So, but thank you very much for the time. I just see your likes on Facebook. I didn't know you had this, reservoir of wisdom. I think one of my friends, you must have had a webinar or something. No, you must bring on the podcast. He's got content. I like you had something. I don't know what the webinar was.
I've attended different webinars. Maybe it's just one of them.
No, there's one that you hosted or something.
Me, I hosted. Yeah, I also hosted a lot of webinars.
Yeah, so he told me, you should. I was like, okay, no, cool. I'll be on the lookout. So when DNK came, he gave me a contact, then I reached out, and now we're here. And I feel like this is very timeless information.
Yes.
5 years from now, I think this because the drinking won't stop, won't go down. It will be higher in 5 years. Yes. So the message will still be.
But maybe one
timely,
or two would have heard.
And for me, that's the whole idea. Even if just one person says, you know what, let me change. I feel like we've done our moral obligation, like you call it, for us to, look out for others. Because it's not the others who just go like, I don't care. I mean, it's your life. Mm-hmm. But the fact that, you spare the time to guide the next person, I feel like for me that's commendable.
Yeah, and that's good. I also love the work that you're doing. You see, with this podcast, you see, there are a lot of people that are following and getting information from this. And in all honesty, we have very few educative podcasts like this in this country right now. We need much more of this than the many other things that we are seeing online.
Yeah, and
as long as our news feed is full of people who are just quarreling, the donor fish and what. It's good for entertainment, really. But we can't have a generation that is built on that. We'll have a disaster.
It's like ice cream. Ice cream is good, but it can't be your main meal.
Yeah.
You can't have ice cream for breakfast, ice cream for lunch,
That's the
ice cream
thing.
for dinner.
So
No.
I think for me now, maybe because I now have 2 children, these things are now beginning to trouble me, because my daughter is 4 now, and I'm thinking in the next 5 years, 10 years, she will also go on social media. And when I go, so this is what my daughter will be seeing. Obvious things are going to get worse. So what is going to happen now? So it's good that we have content like what you're creating right now. I hope that this can now grow into a TV station or something. That's just bringing productive content.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're not ideal.
We need
Many
this
times
kind
I
of
think
thing.
about stopping because of the pressure. But like you said, the sacrifice. Look, when I have a conversation like this, I feel like, you know what, we're doing good work on the podcast.
Yeah,
let's
very
continue.
much, very much.
Then when I go home, I go like, I think this month end is the last one. But anyway, here we are. But thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this has been Mwala Mooto. Follow him on Facebook. Mwala Mooto with 2 O's at the beginning, then 1 O at the end. I actually kept thinking there was even a double in the Mwala, but yeah. He is the founder and CEO for Mooto Holdings. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. And we obviously will keep looking out for where you're going, because I feel like for me, it's a matter of, look, when you came on the podcast, this is where you are. Now this is where you are. And, the progress is seen. And that's where now we need, like Mr. Engineer Ebongando says, we need Zambian billionaires who you can trace. Because some people don't... I've had problems with people with money coming on the podcast. No, he doesn't do interviews. Why? Because the fear they have is when you do interviews, someone starts adding the mathematics and it's not making sense. How did you move from? You get the point, right? But where your success is traceable and say, look, I started business when I was 21. There's no way in 10 years I cannot have these things, And for me, that is what we need, for us to have traceable stories of young people. And also, we don't want to bring billionaires here when they're 67. No. He's 20-something, he's 30, he's doing some notable work. So keep up with the good work and we'll keep following.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so remember also that the podcast is brought to you by Best Life Insurance, and you can save for your child's education with a Best Life Endowment Plan. Call 095-376-5656 for details, and you will be assisted on that front. We'll see you on the next episode of the Growth Podcast.